Most parents are wary of the so-called heavy metal music.
Salut à tous, METALXS, c'est l'essentiel de l'actualité métal et dérivé en quelques minutes, le tout en images, en musique et en interview. METALXS est une exclusivité Refix by Crédit Mutuel, la plateforme de toutes les musiques, tous les talents en partenariat avec Art Force. C'est parti! Formé il y a 44 ans à Los Angeles, Armored Saint traverse les décennies avec une parfaite intégrité, même si la route n'a pas été une ligne droite. Figure incontournable du heavy metal américain, le groupe qui s'est imposé avec le mythique March of the Saint en 1984 revient aujourd'hui avec un 9e album studio, Emotion Factory Reset. Produit comme les 4 précédents disques par le bassiste Joey Vera et mixé par Jay Ruston, l'album est sorti ce 22 mai et se révèle en 11 titres comme une renaissance et une reconstruction. À l'heure où nombre de groupes légendaires oscillent entre nostalgie et quête de modernité, les Californiens, eux, poursuivent leur route sans artifice. Un heavy metal sincère, forgé par le temps, porté par l'expérience et joué avec le cœur. Et pour défendre ce nouvel album, Armored Saint a repris la route jusqu'à la fin 2026 avec plusieurs dates européennes, mais aucune en France, pour l'instant. Alors nous sommes allés à leur rencontre à Los Angeles, au mythique Rainbow Bar and Grill sur Sunset Boulevard, là même où le groupe se produisait. Rencontre avec des vétérans qui n'ont rien perdu de leur flamme.
Hey, this is Joey Vera.
And John Bush from Armored Saint, and you are watching METALXS.
6 ans après Pushing the Sky, Armored Saint continue d'avancer. Qu'est-ce qui nourrit encore aujourd'hui la créativité et l'envie du groupe?
I get that asked a lot, and you probably do too recently. It's a popular question. Why the hell are you still doing this?
Yeah, why?
And my short answer is that because we have the opportunity to write, record, and put out new music, and I think that's a big motivator for us, being able to create more music and on our own terms. We have a great label with Metal Blade that allows us to work in this way, and I think that's my short answer, is that the ability to just create new music. And it's very, all 5 of us love to do that, love to create more music. So that is I would say, the one motivating factor for sure.
Alors que Emotion Factory Reset sort tout juste, une question se pose. Les tournées récentes ont-elles retardé le travail sur ce nouvel album?
Well, remember, Punch in the Sky came out in 2020, and that was right when COVID happened. So a lot of bands weren't touring, a lot of bands were staying home. We decided to put our record out even during that precarious time because we wanted people to be able to listen to music when they were trapped inside their homes. So we didn't actually start touring probably until about 2 years after that record was out. And then we actually did a fair amount of touring, especially in North America. 2 tours with Wasp, 1 with Queensryche, some dates in Europe. So we were pretty busy, actually some of the busiest that Armored Saint's been on the road for a while. So plus, we don't really move that fast when it comes to writing. But I always say it's about the quality, not the quantity of the records.
En 2025, Armored Saints partageait l'affiche avec Wasp et Michael Schenker. À ce moment-là, l'enregistrement de Emotion Factory Reset était-il déjà bien avancé?
Yes and no. Not with Wasp. We didn't start till after that, long after that tour. But we had started, we were actually, when we did the Michael Schenker dates, we were already in the mixing stages. So half and half. We didn't really stop writing writing officially till like March of last year, and then we began recording the drums in April, and we did it in several different sections of time between April and say September, and then after that we went out with Michael Schenker while the Jay Ruston, the mixing engineer, was working on the record, and so that's how that worked out.
Well, we did do the Wasp dates in England too, so we did play.
We did 3 shows with Wasp also during that Schenker, right before the Schenker run, actually, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
Saints l'a souvent affirmé, chaque album ouvre un nouveau chapitre. Avec celui-ci, le groupe avait-il envie de renouer avec certains aspects de son identité sonore des débuts?
That's a good question. I mean, we're always kind of looking back, but at the same time, we're very much looking forward. So, you know, there's elements that are retro, sometimes retro in connection with the bands that actually influence us from the 70s, maybe some of the 80s, and then, you know, a little retro from looking back at our own old records. But the last thing we ever want to do is to go back, look back, and go, let's try to emulate what we did on March of the Saint or Symbol of Salvation, or even for that matter, When Hands Down, which was only 10 years ago. So we're always trying to just kind of grow our sound, and we know that at the end of the day, our roots and our foundation is that we're a hard rock heavy metal band, and that kind of just sets the tone for what we do.
Yes, the party's over. Now we all can celebrate. Yes, the party's over.
Au moment de composer de nouveaux morceaux, se laisse-t-il influencer par les musiques qu'ils écoutent à cette période?
Good question.
I get asked that a lot too. And again, the short answer is yes and no. I mean, there's, you know, me personally speaking, I'm not afraid to let things that I'm listening to while I'm writing. It sort of depends on what it is though. Someone asked me if I listen to current metal bands if I'm writing, and the answer to that is I don't listen to much metal new bands, especially while I'm writing. And mostly when I'm at home, I listen to classic rock, so there goes that out the window. But so I don't really listen to stuff that's current unless it's outside of the box of the metal genre. Then I don't have a problem letting some things seep in as long as it's not super obvious. But for the most part, I don't really do that.
Que signifie réellement le titre Emotion Factory Reset? Cette idée était-elle présente dès le départ ou s'est-elle imposée progressivement au fil du processus d'enregistrement?
It was a lyric that is in the song Close to the Bone. It was actually a suggestion of Phil Sandoval. He gave me some ideas for some various lyrics. I tried to use some where it kind of jived with some of the stuff that I was already working on. And to me, and you know, Joey might feel something different, and so could Gonzo and Phil and Jeff. But for me, it kind of encompasses a couple things. Number one is, you know, I feel like our music's very emotional. We don't just kind of hit people with, you know, being angry when they hear our music. You can feel various emotions from enthusiasm to some anxiety to certainly some melancholy moments and certainly a lot of energy. So we try to bring that emotion in different forms on various songs depending on what the song is. I like the idea of this kind of factory method of working in a way because it kind of brings everyone into play. So like you have, you know, similar to like you would if you were at the Renault car plant in France where everybody has their different things that they work on, almost like an assembly line. And I think a band's kind of like that. You know, the drummer does his thing, bass player does his thing, singer does his thing, then you work on background vocals, and it's almost like an assembly line to me. And I kind of thought that was cool. And then reset, the kind of way I look at it is like we're always resetting when we make a new record. We're kind of regrouping, rethinking what we want to do, and that's kind of like our reset. So those combination of the 3 words I think matter. I was trying not to have a 3-song title because we already have it in Punching the Sky and symbol of salvation, and whatever, not raising fear. In any case, went hands down. But anyway, it happened to be that, and it's still a great title, so we're happy.
Comment le groupe a-t-il choisi les différents lieux de production et d'enregistrement de l'album?
Well, we recorded the drums at 606 Studios, which is owned by Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, and I had done a few sessions there with another band I play with called Motor Sister, and Jay Ruston, the mixer for our record, was the producer on that record. So we had this sort of familiar connection there, so I was able to get into the studio there, and I was able to work with this engineer named Oliver Roman, who's a great engineer and works there in the studio. So we chose that. It's a great drum room. It's a really nice place, and ironically, the console that's in there is the console that was at Sound City in Van Nuys, it used to be.
Yeah.
And we recorded it's a famous old studio from the 70s, and it was there for many years. And we actually did Raising Fear there, a big portion of it. And so it was kind of a cool big circle to be recording this record on the same console that we did Raising Fear. And then we did more recording at Jeff Friedel's house. Jeff Friedel's the drummer from Devo, and he became an acquaintance of mine and has a really nice home studio at his place. So we just was a cool thing to set up there, and we did all the guitars there, and we also did some work with Bill Matoyer at his place. Again, these are people that we all have sort of connections with just by being friends mostly. So that's kind of how that worked out. I mean, it was fortuitous in a way that we have so many cool friends that have great studios, so it worked out great.
And we did most of the vocals at Joey's house.
Another guy we know.
Sorti en 1991, Symbol of Salvation reste un album majeur dans la carrière d'Armored Saint, celui qui lui a permis de toucher un public plus large. Quel souvenir garde-t-il de la tournée américaine de 2018, durant laquelle l'album a été interprété intégralement sur scène?
Oh, that's a good question. It was really cool. Yeah, we went out and we played that album in its entirety. Had some great shows. The Regent here in Los Angeles being the last one we did, which was killer. We actually did some dates in Europe. Unfortunately, we didn't play any in France, which is a big disappointment. We should have played Paris, but we didn't. But we did a bunch of cool shows in Europe, including like Zagreb, Croatia, which was a cool city to play in and just go to, among many others. So I think the coolest thing about doing that, and more than just the shows itself, was the realization that what a great album it was, and a real diverse album that it was. Because you start with Rain of Fire, you end with Spineless, and there's a lot of twists and turns in between all of that, with songs like Tribal Dance, Last Train Home, Truth Always Hurts, Another Day, Tainted Past, all the way back to Hanging Judge, which was like I think the first song we wrote for that record. So, and it kind of conjures up a lot more of the memory of Dave, because Dave was a big part of the writing, and he was still in the band and alive during that process. So it was great.
Like John said, we'd pay tribute to him every night. We'd stop, we would, before, I forget what song you would announce, but we would say, hey, this is for Dave. He's always with us, so the crowd.
Another Day, probably.
Probably Another Day.
Yeah,
right?
after On Bridge.
Yeah, and so the crowd was there with us in that feeling. It was pretty emotional in a lot of the cities. It was great, and it made you realize a lot of the deep cut sleepers that were on the record. The song like Burning Question, for instance, was like a really early song we wrote, and like a whole crowd singing the whole song. And this is a song we pretty much never played live, and it was a cool thing to just see the appreciation from everybody and the love for Pritchard and the whole record, and it's really cool.
L'an dernier marquait également les 40 ans du second album du groupe, Delirious Nomad, un autre jalon important de sa carrière. Quels souvenirs leur reviennent quand ils repensent à l'écriture et à l'enregistrement de ce disque?
Well, a few of them, working with Max Norman, which was cool because he has a history of his own in the music business and heavy metal world. The guy guy did, the first 2 Ozzy records. So, and he was a funny guy. He bust our chops a lot. Unfortunately, it was a time when he actually parted ways with Phil Sandoval for a while. But I think in the end, we've kind of covered a lot of ground back with Phil and being in the band, and he's resumed in '91 and never has been gone since, of course. So, but it was a time in our history, so it did exist. We became a 4-piece band, which was kind of a question mark in our history. We tried to get Jeff Duncan actually even then, but he wanted to stay with the band that he was, his own band at the time, Odin, and we certainly respected that. So we kind of decided to remain a 4-piece, which was a little tough through the years, even though Joey's one of the most amazing bass players in metal. Sometimes the second guitar sound was missed in Armored Saint's live sound. And there was just some great songs that were very different, even though there was some leftovers from the March of the Saint recordings. There was a lot of different songs that we had wrote to kind of be a combination with some of those songs like In the Hole and Nervous Man and Aftermath. And some of these songs really kind of took on, I think a lot of people to this day, Delirious Nomad's their favorite record, and it was kind of very different from March of the Saint. For better or worse, sometimes the record label would scratch their head with some of these tunes and we're like, what are you doing? Don't we have another Can You Deliver? And we said, we don't. But we have a really cool song called For the Sake of Heaviness. And, I think that we stayed true to following our heart at that time. And in the long run, made a really, really cool album.
Après une carrière aussi longue, les attentes du public peuvent être importantes. Le groupe tient-il compte de cette pression au moment d'écrire de nouveaux morceaux?
I try not to myself. I try to forget about all that. I never want to feel like we have to live up to something. It's hard, because sometimes when we finish records, we're like, wow, that was a great record, how are we going to outdo it? And this is another one. But at the time, when you go back to writing it and starting a new process, you have to take that out of your mind completely, and you just have to reset, start from a blank slate, and this is where we're at now. So I personally try to just forget about all that stuff, and really what it comes down to, and I hate to sound a little selfish maybe, but predominantly we write this stuff for ourselves first. And if the fans come with us, perfect and amazing. But if we end up turning some people off, so be it. This is where we are. We have to be honest with that, and we want to be sincere with what we're doing. And so that's the process. That's the way the process works for me anyway.
And I don't think we've turned off not one person.
Le métal a traversé de nombreuses tendances au fil des décennies. Comment Armored Saint est-il parvenu à rester fidèle à lui-même sans céder aux modes passagères?
Well, are we relevant? That's probably the question we're always asking ourselves. It's something that we could take back to the 80s when, we were trying to figure out our sound and our style. We were pretty young. We were young. We were just trying to kind of figure out what kind of band we wanted to be. We had all these influences from the 70s, but then you had the 80s, a new wave of British heavy metal that had a big influence. And at that time, in the mid-80s, by the time we put out March of the Saint, there was 2 scenes that were really kind of starting to develop. The thrash metal scene was in full force. The hair metal scene was in full force. And the reality is that Armored Saint never really fit in with either one. Certainly we're a heavy, powerful band live, but we certainly didn't really fit completely in with the Bay Area thrash scene that was happening. We played with tons of bands from the LA scene because we're from LA, bands like Rat, Wasp, Great White, among many others. And we dig those bands and we had great shows with them. But we really didn't fit quite in with that scene either. So I always say that sometimes I'm saying a little bit of an inferiority complex. And it really was about the time of Symbol of Salvation that we really kind of figured it out. And how did we figure it out? We got dropped by our label. The future was uncertain. We found out Dave Pritchard had leukemia, so we didn't really have a solid base to kind of bank it on. So we said, you know what, let's write music for ourselves. Let's just do it all for ourselves and figure out hopefully, somehow, some way, we'll get picked up and things will get better. And things did get better because we had eventually Metal Blade come back with us and resume that relationship. Unfortunately, Dave did die, but the reality is that was the album that probably cemented us kind of figuring out that who cares about what's going on around us, let's just do our thing. And that has continued on from La Raza, Revelation, When Hands Down, all the way down to this new album, Emotion Factory Reset.
De retour en Europe à partir du mois de juillet pour une tournée des festivals, Arnold Saints prévoit-il également d'autres dates au cours de l'été?
Not as of now. We don't start this until late July, and by the time we get back from the very last show, which I think is Stone Dead Festival in the UK, I think it's Labor Day weekend, so that's officially the end of summer, I think. So there's nothing else that's going to get added to that. We are currently working on something potentially for North America in the fall, but nothing we can really discuss yet. So that's all we have so far. But we are working on more stuff. Some of it's including a few things in Europe for next year and even South America. But again, nothing set in stone just yet.
Lorsque les auditeurs découvriront Emotion Factory Reset, qu'espère le groupe leur transmettre ou leur laisser une fois l'album terminé?
Well, I think that we just want people to kind of give it an open mind. Obviously we're this heavy metal band that started in the 80s, and now we've continued on 40 years later, and here we are making a new record, and we think the new record stands very tall on its own. Have an open mind, and then maybe you'll say, wow, how did a lot of people miss this band? Because they're really, really cool. And hopefully it'll open their mind up to all the previous stuff we did. And, at the end of the day, we want people to dig it. That's the whole point of making it. Although Joey did point out that, sometimes we take a slightly selfish perspective in the way we create it. But in the end, I think a lot of people who like hard rock and metal, how could they not love it? It's great.
À noter sur vos tablettes les sorties discographiques récentes ou à paraître dans les prochains jours. Voilà, METALXS, c'est terminé pour aujourd'hui. On se retrouve très très vite pour un nouveau numéro avec toujours plus d'interviews et de contenus inédits. Un immense merci pour votre fidélité et n'oubliez pas de prolonger l'expérience métal sur fx.fr. Salut!